All right, welcome to the Hennessey podcast. We were actually just hashing out. I've got Alex and Jerry here from Hennessey, and we were just hashing out what do we call our podcast. I think right now it's been the Hennessey podcast, or
it's been a couple different names.
What else have we been using? It's been a while since we podcasted. And by the way, if you're watching this, we're like the last time we did this was like several months ago, but we've been busy, and but anyway, we got a lot of stuff to talk about. Jerry recommended the Hennessey files,
yeah,
which
like
makes
that.
you think of the Rockford files, and James Garner was a big car guy. So anyway, if you're watching and listening to the podcast, if you got a name for our show, let us know. We might use it. Anyway, so we've been trying to do this for a while now. Jerry, we've been talking about, a lot of people have watched, I think, here in the last week or so, the Grand Tour season opener, season 3, out on Amazon, and you were there. You were witness to the Exorcist. You built the car,
Right.
and were pretty much present. We had also Vinny. You and Vinny, I was there for part of the deal, but you guys were. How long were you guys in Detroit for that shoot?
Oof, I
8
think
days.
8 days, yeah.
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 So that was Detroit. You got to see some of the finer parts of Detroit.
Yeah, fighter parts is right.
Well, and look, I'll be honest, I haven't watched the whole thing because I have kind of a weird thing that, I don't know, I have a hard time looking at myself in pictures and something like that. So anyway, I'll watch the rest of it, so you guys will probably, I assume you'd watch the whole thing, but.
I've seen bits and pieces of it. I haven't quite sat down and got the whole thing, but I was there.
Yeah.
It's a pretty entertaining piece.
Yeah.
I think we were represented in a good light, and our car performed well. And it's TV.
Well,
it's not a real car guy show.
So let's get into the details. I mean, I'm assuming most of the people that are listening to this or watching it are familiar with Grand Tour. It's the guys that were previously on Top Gear: Jeremy Clarkson, James May, and Richard Hammond, who became famous on Top Gear. And we work with them, and we're going to talk about that. We worked with them towards the end of their tenure at the BBC. And so, anyway, fast forward, these guys, they reached out to us over a year ago, and they said, hey, we would love to do something with the Exorcist. And I'm like, okay, well, we're probably in. We're most likely in. We know that you guys are going to try to trash the car and do something crazy, but a lot of people watch it, and it's entertaining, so we like that. And so, anyways, the thing kind of gelled together. We found out that they were going to do a deal in Detroit, that it was going to be the Exorcist, the Dodge Demon, so Exorcist versus Demon. A lot of people want to see that, and a Mustang. And so we sent the Exorcist up. Vinny drove up in the trailer. We brought spare everything, didn't we?
Oh, yeah. I flew out there and met him. He drove up there. We brought everything: wheels, tires, tools.
How many sets of tires did we go through in that deal?
I think 8. Or probably 3 sets of tires,
Yeah,
2 sets of
3.
tires.
Nah,
I
4
don't
sets of
know.
tires.
We had radials, we had street tires, we had all kinds of
Anyway,
stuff.
so
We had extra wheels.
bottom line is, we know that whether it's Top Gear or whether it's Grand Tour, these guys go way over the top, trying to show some crazy vehicles, doing some crazy stunts, and there's a lot of wear and tear that goes with that. A lot of I had a conversation with the top PR guy at a top company that everybody knows the company in the cars, and they do their best to avoid working with those guys because they know that they're just going to just beat the crap out of their cars, and there's always a chance they may not say something nice about the car if it breaks.
Right. I think that whenever we work with those guys, we can expect that they're going to try and break our car.
Yeah.
They're gonna try and break it. They're not gonna cool it down. They're not gonna warm it up.
No, not at all.
So you guys show up, and again, we didn't really know what was going to go down, but I think we found out pretty quickly that the producers of Grand Tour did their best to find the absolute worst parts of town in Detroit. It's entertainment.
Yeah, I think aside from the areas being pretty rough, the thing that I was most worried about was the streets.
Yeah.
Just beating on the car, drifting over potholes. And,
they were drifting, they were jumping over like railroad tracks.
Yeah, it was just the hardest, the roughest road. Just a step above dirt in some spots, and it was really rough on the car, and just doing the craziest stuff, going over those potholes and bumpy roads and high speeds. And
I think one thing that the listeners, I think, again, there's a lot of podcasts, there's a lot of stuff out there. We're going to try our best on our podcast to talk about stuff that you're just not going to hear about anywhere else. And I think what gives us kind of a unique peek behind the curtain with Grand Tour and with Top Gear, and we'll talk about, the Velociraptor and going up the mountain in Canada. But I think the listeners are going to want to know about, what do these guys like to work with? And I can talk at length about that. But Jerry, what was your impression? So we were in Detroit in June of 2018.
Right.
And so how was it? Just what was your overall impression working with I know you didn't work with the presenters directly as much, but we had a lot more access to those guys this go around than we did when they were on Top Gear, right?
Right. Well, I think the difference between working with them with Grand Tour versus Top Gear was that they were much more willing to let us in on some of that inside, get close, allowing us to do things we needed to do. Whereas Top Gear was, when we let the truck go or car go in the morning, it didn't come back unless it was broken, and
right.
So they were much easier to work with on Grand Tour versus Top Gear for sure. We had a lot more access before.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And again, if you going back to towards the end of Clarkson, Hammond, and May at Top Gear, so we filmed the yellow Velociraptor 600 truck in British Columbia, Canada, with them in the Top Gear BBC crew. So that was like November of 14.
I want to say it was the second to last episode.
Yeah, I think it was our yellow truck was the last, one of the last.
Either the last or
yeah, one of the last. Either last or one of the last. And so anyway, so going back to that time, and I was there for that whole deal. And to your point, I think the amount of tension. I think at that point in time, maybe Jeremy was going through a divorce. The media was all over him because he was always, he's the king of controversy and keeping the pot stirred. And I think there was just, you could just cut the tension even amongst the crew. I think the crew at that time were kind of afraid of those guys. They didn't want to be too close. They wanted to do their job, and nobody wanted to mess up at their job. But there was definitely a much heightened level of, it seemed like just tension, anxiety. But at the same time, I'll give those guys their due. They were extremely professional. Watching both of these crews work is kind of like watching Navy SEALs on a drill. They know their stuff.
Yeah, and to me, it seemed like Top Gear was almost a bigger operation. It seemed like there was a lot more people involved in the filming of that, and there was a lot more. There's a lot more going on.
There were probably 50 people in that deal.
Oh yeah,
in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, in the middle of nowhere. We're all bunkered up in this lodge, and there's snow everywhere. And I think everybody was stressed from that, and then we had our own stresses of not being able to get near the vehicles to do what we needed to do.
Okay, so let me talk about that real quick. So the guy that Jeremy ended up punching not too soon after our deal, he's a nice guy, O'Sheen. We're still friends on Facebook or whatever. But man, he ran a tight ship to the point to where there were times when I kind of wanted to punch the guy. And again, Osh, if you're watching this, no knock against you. You run a tight ship, but yeah, they were I think, and again, I don't think he made this up on his own. He was probably directed to do this, but they wanted to keep the presenters so isolated from anybody because I think they were worried somebody's got a camera phone, somebody catches a video, catches one of the presenters saying the wrong thing at the wrong time, which anybody, we've all done. And then it blows up into some controversy. So they kind of wanted to keep us way away from this guy. So we're yeah, just give us a truck and stay within an hour of where we're at. I'm like, dude, we're either helping you with our vehicle, we want our vehicle to run well, and if you've got a problem, we'll take care of it. Or we're going to watch a football. It's kind of one or the other. Either we're on the mountain with you or we're not. Right?
Well, yeah, and I think that's the thing is that it's not like they were taking the truck and they were just going down the road. They were going 7,000 feet.
Yeah, they were doing all kinds of crazy stuff through the snow and just driving like maniacs, going through rivers and And I think the first day in the lot we brought two trucks, so we brought a backup truck just because we were figuring they're trying to break our whatever they're driving.
Good call, by the way.
And so I think we had a CV boot that gave way when they put the snow chains on it or something.
Yeah, we had a tired DB take out the CV boot and some of the some of the other things out in that wheel well area.
But we were always in the running, right?
Yeah. Well, when one was down, the other one was going, and then it was kind of one of those deals where they hydrolocked the one truck going across that river, and I ended up pulling all the spark plugs out of it, and we got it going again, and it was just in time for that.
Thing. I mean, that thing with the water was like above the hood.
Oh yeah, it was deep, and they were going into the water at speed. I think as that one was I was ready to ship that one back to them.
You say hydrolock, you changed the plugs, but the motor wasn't dead.
No, the motor wasn't dead. It was just full of water, and
Right.
it sucked in a bunch of water. Don't you remember we were taking hats that we were wearing and putting
put
them
on
over
the air filter. Yeah.
like an outerwear?
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
So we were just trying to do whatever we could.
We're just trying to keep them in the running. I mean, those guys probably spent $1 million to go to Canada to film this thing, and we want to make sure our truck was. But the Chevy. So Chevy, GM Canada, they sent out this Duramax 2500 HD
Silverado
four-wheel drive Silverado truck,
okay.
And like we came packed to the gills. They sent like one of their technicians that was like getting ready to retire.
What was his
name?
Declan,
if you're listening,
Declan's a good guy.
He's a great guy. So after the first day, they go up the mountain, and we're waiting for what happens, and the Velociraptor comes down the mountain, and we're like, well, where's the Chevy? Well, the Chevy's dead. It spit out the drive shaft or the yoke rope?
The Chevy kept breaking the front drive shaft. Every time it would break the front drive shaft, it would take out the oil filter, so then it had to be shut down immediately.
Right.
So here comes the Chevy getting
And this is all because they're putting snow chains on there, which they're not supposed to do. So it's not the Chevy's fault.
And the Duramax isn't really an off-road truck.
Right.
And so the snowcat would pull it all the way back down the mountain, and poor Declan would be there in the snow while everyone's eating dinner.
So it comes down, and they're like, oh, the Chevy's done.
Yeah.
And you were like, hey, Declan, do you need any help with that? He's like, I think the motor's dead. And so we went back to the hotel.
No.
What happened?
Well, so Declan said, I think I can get it going with some parts from one of these rental camera trucks. It was like a Yukon.
Right.
So me and Declan, I was like, well, I'll help you, man. Let's get it going. It was nighttime. It was snowing. There was already snow on the ground. It was freezing cold. We hardly had any lights, and we laid under the camera truck, which was a Yukon.
No, but what about the very first night? We gave up on. We thought they were dead, and we went to the hotel.
Did we?
And we came back the next morning, and Declan stayed up all night.
Oh, that's right.
Okay, he stayed up all night, and we thought, that old guy, there's no way he's going to do that. And so he starts telling us he's working on it till like 4 in the morning, and then he needed another pair of hands, so he had to go wake up somebody on the crew.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember. Yeah,
and so at that point, when they went, after that, then you were all in to help him.
Well, yeah, because then
they kept breaking it.
Shortly after, the same exact thing happened. So that night, that's when I helped him.
Yeah.
We pulled the drive shaft out of the Yukon camera truck and got an oil filter, and we got it going. But yeah, he didn't quit. He kept that truck running. I mean, I feel like we helped him out a little bit, but
So I mean, up to that point, they, we had talked to Clarkson a little bit. I think I had met him before, but anyway, we're at the hotel in Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
It was early, and he and May were up having a smoke outside.
I don't know if they ever went to bed.
Maybe not.
To be honest with you.
No, maybe not. So anyway, we're just having a little chit chat, and we found out that Clarkson was driving our truck, which was cool. And then we had the big light bar on the top. I'm like, hey, your buddy over there, James? I said, when you get behind him, just flip this switch, the big bright LED lights.
Yeah.
Anyway, he had a lot of fun with that on the show.
Yeah, because we ended up driving through some tremendous weather to get to the lodge.
Yeah.
And those light bars actually came in handy because we were driving the spare truck.
Well, it was even fun. They didn't want us part of the caravan. They wanted us to stay back.
Yeah, a mile back.
But no, further than that, they wanted us to be like an hour back. But we ended up catching them, and then we stayed back. Mm-hmm. But I remember we went to the Shell station in Nelson, BC. Mm-hmm. And I was in the back of Velociraptor, so Clarkson was in the one in the show. And I remember when he pulled out, I'm like, I'm going to get behind him and flash him with the LEDs.
Right.
So I was jacking with him and flashing the LEDs on him. And,
going up a mountain.
That was fun.
It was treacherous.
What color was the backup truck?
They're both
identical.
They were both
bright pencil yellow. Yeah.
Everything was the same.
Was the backup truck ever used on filming?
Both of them were.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Because they tore up a CV boot. With their snow chains, and you had to address that.
Yeah, so they tore up the CV boot, and then
ran it underwater. U-boat commander time.
Yep, and then at the end there, they jumped the one truck and did some damage to the bumper and winch, and we readjusted that stuff. But
Right.
all in all, they held up really good.
They did.
Like they did, you know, those trucks did
And,
well.
and I was, I mean, you watch Top Gear enough, and my theory was if you bring a good vehicle and you help them as much as you can, that they would give us, a fair shake. But I also have seen shows where cars don't perform well on the show, and I think they get thrown under the bus because they feel like, hey, look, we were here to film a good show. It's the manufacturer's job to bring a good vehicle.
Whatever happens, happens.
So, I kind of want to, make sure we stay focused on making sure the trucks were good and helping the crew as much as we could. And then at the very end, Jeremy got up there, beat James, rescued Hamster from the top of the mountain, and when they came down, they were all happy.
Yeah.
And we're having drinks,
Yeah,
and that was pretty cool, Mike. These guys are kind of heroes, and I think for them to be happy and satisfied, we felt like when the thing came out on TV, we looked pretty good.
But yeah, and I think when you're watching it from your house, you're not thinking like, okay, yeah, they're in the truck and they're in some snow, but it was really a climb to the top of that mountain, and it wasn't just those trucks that went up, but it was the camera vehicles,
snowcats,
and sleds, and
well, that was one takeaway. One thing, just again, this is just kind of my perspective, spending a little bit of time with those guys. They are total workaholics. I think they worked crazier hours and were more driven when they were on BBC.
Yeah,
they're still very driven and very focused with Amazon and that Grand Tour program. But I kind of feel like, these guys, they go to Argentina, they're in Canada, they're gone from home for like weeks at a time. They're together the whole time. I could definitely see where, whenever it happened a month later, after that working those long hours, all that pressure, somebody snapping and, taking a swing at somebody like what happened.
right.
So, I mean, I just, again, kind of fast forwarding till now or to last year, with the Grand Tour thing, they definitely, the presenters, everybody seemed a lot more relaxed.
Yeah, I want to say that I think that when they were on Top Gear, it didn't seem like they were having quite as much fun. It seemed more like work to
Right.
me, just from my perspective as an outsider. And then when they were on Grand Tour, it was a lot more relaxed, and it seemed like it was easy to do the job,
Well, I think it was the second or third day, whenever we went to the airport and we did drag race the Exorcist and the Demon. We'll talk about that. I mean, yeah, we're just like hanging out, BSing with these guys.
Yeah.
And it was nice. It was cool just to hang out with other car guys that, I think part of I'd be real relaxed too if Amazon gave us $300 million for 3 seasons. So, I think they've all done very, very well. And, just watching the show, I thought the photography was just really beautiful.
Yeah, I thought everything was great, and from the bits and pieces I've seen, and like I said, hadn't watched the whole entire thing, but it seemed like they used a lot more of the content that they filmed on the show versus in Top Gear. It seems like we filmed for 5-6 days and saw not very much footage actually make it onto the show, so it was nice to see that.
I think, the Grand Tour guys, Jeremy Clarkson and Andy Woolman, primarily being kind of the two main creative drivers behind the show, they, they're, I think, much more in control of Grand Tour, whereas I think when it's Top Gear, it's BBC, it's part of the British government. There's probably have a lot of other people telling them what to do that they're like, quit telling me what to do. We know better what to do than you guys know what to do. That's why we're successful. But anyway.
This way is better.
Yeah.
Them being with the Grand Tour, I think, is a better outcome.
All right, let's talk about the drag race. So I'm watching the show, and we get up to like where they get to the airport. I'm like, I know what happens. I really don't want to watch this. So the Exorcist ends up losing to the Demon, which, we've tested them out here. We got our own drag strip. Well, no, it's legitimately what happened. It's not fake.
Well, so one time we did beat the Demon, but I think our huge thing was traction on that whole deal, and you could see it in the show.
Well, the other thing is, so just I haven't watched this part of it, so I don't think they talk about it, but when we got to the drag strip, and James is like, who got out first typically? Did we get? It was kind of we go back and forth with those guys.
Yeah, we kind of went back and forth on who gets out of the hole first. It always seemed like the Demon was a little bit more hooked up, and.
But we would. So no matter what happened, no matter who got out first, like in the middle of the race, from like 300 feet to say 800 feet, we jump out ahead. I mean, we got more power. I mean, the Exorcist is just faster in every dimension than the Demon.
And we'd start reeling them in.
But on the big end, James would come back and said, the car it felt twitchy. I had to lift out of the throttle. I'm like, I've driven that car. I've driven a lot of our Exorcists, and I've never felt any instability when I got in the car and it got to the end of the runway, and I could feel the acid wiggling around. And you could talk more about this, and she'd worked on it, but when we brought it back to the shop, we almost kind of felt like there was something that went on with all their pounding and beating on the potholes and the train tracks, all that crap, that knocked the suspension out of alignment just enough to where, I don't know if it was a toe issue or what, but anyway, no excuses. The demon beat us, but not because of anything other than the car was just a little was weird.
Yeah, well, I think, we did a lot of things with that car. That same car we did not too long, before that we did 217 in the car, and there was a lot of testing.
No, but we had that was no issue. Now we're not running 9.5s in the quarter mile. That might have put some twist. But it went straight plenty.
But it went
before we wouldn't have sent the car to Detroit if we thought we were going to lose the Demon.
Right, and I think, and we did a lot of testing. I had driven the car a lot, just back and forth from work, and we'd change something, I'd drive it, and every time I drove that car, 60, 70, 80 miles an hour on the highway, and you pound on it, well, it was going to light the tires up. So naturally it felt a little bit unstable until it would straighten out, with the power and put the power down. But I think what we were dealing with there was they were just drifting over potholes and jumping over train tracks, and there was all these different things happening. So what we ended up finding out was after the car was freight trained and smoke from the tires at every drag race they did, when I changed the tires the next day for the next shoot, the outside of the tires were all brand new and the insides were down at the belt. So I figured out that they had been riding on negative camber really badly. So,
something maybe a change on the camber from the pounding.
Something happened. It was something just got knocked out.
Well, look, now we're not making any excuses. The Demon beat us in that drag race fair and square, but I don't think there's too many other drag races where the Exorcist is going to lose the Demon. But anyway,
no.
Fair enough.
Well,
we modified the Demons,
Yeah, and we had the FCA guys. They took our car down the strip, and they said, we had a lift too. So
yeah.
But like you said, no excuses. We lost that one, but we got more power. Yeah. We could win on a good day. That just wasn't our day.
Right. Overall, again, I need to watch the end of it, but the beginning and the middle of it, I thought they were pretty positive towards Exorcist, so it was pretty cool.
Yeah, those guys. I think. May told me that this car would be better with a 2x4 under the gas pedal.
Yeah,
easier to
traction
drive.
control.
Yeah,
that's funny. Well, any other funny stories about working with those guys? I mean, one little thing that's funny is that they like the rosé.
Oh yeah.
At the end of the day.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Those guys.
So if you're a Grand Tour fan and you ever like want to send them a Christmas gift or something for their birthday, send them a case of rosé. I don't think they'll send it back.
Yeah, no, they enjoy that stuff. They enjoy their downtime when they're not working, but they do work a lot. They're
it's funny. It's like when you talk to them when they're not on camera, they're hard to understand a little bit.
Oh,
I spent a lot of time in England.
Everybody that works for the film crew, everybody, it's a challenge to understand what they're saying, and they talk fast.
They talk fast. I think that's just it.
They talk fast and they have a heavy accent.
So
and
they probably say the same thing about us.
Well, yeah, but
I think it'd be interesting to talk about the difference between the Top Gear crews. I wasn't on the Canada Top Gear shoot or the Grand Tour shoot, but I was on the Utah Top Gear shoot with the other presenters, and you guys were on all three.
Well, that's a whole different
angle. So maybe you
guys
can talk about the difference in the crews.
Yeah.
And the presenters. Because we had Matt LeBlanc.
I'm so glad you brought that up because I was just thinking about these guys before and after. But when we did, so we had our GT350R Mustang with our HP 850 kit. So that went to the new Top Gear guys, but now they've changed a little bit.
American Top Gear.
Yeah. Well, no. This was Matt LeBlanc, Chris Harris, and Rory Reed. So these were the guys that we were in in Utah, September of 17. Yeah, and then that came out on whatever the most recent season. They were wonderful. I mean, nothing could have been any nicer. And again, and I'm not comparing them with the Grand Tour guys. They were wonderful too. But just if we're going to compare BBC before BBC now, it just, everything seemed to go really, really smooth. I thought Matt and all the presenters got along great, and I'm kind of sad to see that Matt's not going to continue on with the show. But it's hard for a guy like that who does another show in LA, who has family and friends, get on a plane and go to England and around the world to film stuff all the time. That would be just like drive me nuts.
Yeah, I think working with those guys was easier.
But they beat the shit out of our car.
Oh yeah, don't underestimate them. They beat the car just as hard.
That was another 4 or 5 sets of tires. Thanks Michelin for helping us out.
Yeah, really, that really was, and a clutch, and
yeah.
There was things to keep the car going for that, but
and no cool down time. They're out there running around that little Randy round track and wouldn't let it cool down. I'm like, you guys have to give it some cool down.
You guys remember the McLaren that got destroyed?
Oh yeah, they cracked the whole trunk floor in that thing. They
cracked the windshield. They had to replace the skid plate.
So they had the 570. So the cars that we were there with were 570 and the Jag. What Jag was that?
Type R.
Type R, yeah. Which held up
or the
good.
SVR.
Yeah, which held up good other than tires and some rock chips. But the McLaren took, I'd say, the biggest beating. I mean, that
McLaren tech, he stayed busy.
But they had desert shots going 3 cars in a row. Luckily, our car was in front. But then they would be doing like dirt burnouts and throwing stuff behind them.
Down the canyon. Going through. They make us take off our splitter because they knew it was going to get ripped off.
I just remember the car being covered inside and out with dust.
There's still dust in that car.
Yeah, that you'll never get out. I mean, it's everywhere.
It's yeah.
I never saw it again after that. I know that. I changed 1,000 sets of tires on it, and then I flew home, and then I never saw it again.
Yeah, we sent it over there for this. It was in the studio for the show, and I went over there. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, and that car held up great. We really didn't have any issues. I mean, the blower got a little hot, spit some oil out at one point. But other than that, it was just tires
they beat the crap
and the
out
clutch.
Of that
Yeah. They beat that car hard.
Yeah.
They beat them all hard. They do that on every. That's how they make their show, and I think it's cool. I think I'm eager to be there to fix it, to keep the show going, and to see our cars do
it's a good testament for our stuff.
Yeah, and everybody sees it,
To our stuff and the manufacturer that we have a base with.
But it is kind of a sacrifice, to give a car to them, for even a little bit of time. It's
generally worth it, though.
I would say so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Yeah.
What, any other crazy stuff that went down? Moab, Utah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, Moab.
Yeah.
The off-road capital of the world.
Yeah, you guys got to do all the fun stuff. When I got there, I had to change a clutch that night.
We'll make it up to you. Yeah, we'll make it up to you.
It was fun for me.
Sure it was.
Good times. What else? Any other Grand Tour, Top Gear stories?
We had that. We were sitting in the car waiting, watching. They were doing the shoot. And I don't remember if you were there or if Matt was still there, but we had that bet on over under how many minutes until this guy pulled out another cigarette.
Oh, yeah. How long was that last? Like 30 seconds?
Yeah, it was like so quick.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Another thing I remember is when we went to Bonneville. Bonneville was full of water, so they couldn't do anything there. And we were hanging out with the guys from JLR Jag Range Rover, so they were there to support the SVR. Nice guys, and so they were in an SVR Range Rover,
right?
And we had a Velociraptor 600 truck, and we dragged. So they're loaded to the gills with parts and spares.
Yeah.
We're loaded to the gills,
and
we're just like this narrow ass little 2-lane road going to Bonneville,
no shoulder,
and so we drag raced them. So the first time
I was in manual.
You're in manual,
and you were pissed.
Yeah, I'm like, hold on. It is a foot, just drive. And so, how did we do?
So then, when we finally got it right, and were we rolling? Yeah, we were rolling. I think, right?
I don't know if we went from a dig.
Did we?
We went from a dig.
Well,
I want to say that we got out ahead of them.
We got out ahead of them.
They passed us at like 110 or something.
Yeah, it took them a while, and they finally got around us. But I think those guys were shocked that the big old Velociraptor was pulling on them.
7,000 to 8,000 pounds worth of stuff.
Yeah, that was fun. That was kind of like our little drag race from the whole thing, because we didn't get to do anything at the salt flats. It was disappointing.
Yeah.
Cool to see.
Yeah. All right, moving on. So I think that was, again, that was fun, and Top Gear, BBC, Grand Tour guys, if you're watching, listening, thanks for including us, and we look forward to doing something else with you at some point soon, maybe with that 5. We'll see. Coming. All right, a couple of other things that we wanted to talk about. You guys want to talk about the Velociraptor V8?
The impossible truck.
Yeah, I think everybody wants to talk about that.
Yeah.
It's a cool deal.
God, how many orders do we have for those? A dozen?
It's, I think it's a little more than that. Okay. We've got several more that we haven't seen yet because they're all through dealers.
Right.
So as soon as the customers get those trucks,
so people are acquiring brand new 2019, typically the Super Crew, the 4-door trucks, sending those to us, and then we're doing the 758 horsepower Velociraptor V8 supercharged Ford 5-liter engines. We buy a new engine, a new transmission, wiring harness, ECU, lots of programming. We spent, 4 or 5 months working on the first one?
Yeah.
It's like the truck came from Ford. It's Absolutely. Like the new Raptor, the new Gen 2 Raptor came from Ford with the V8, and it just sounds amazing.
Everything works, all the modes work, all the lights work, everything on the dash works, drives like stock, but way faster.
And back then when you had that idea to swap it, I didn't know that all that stuff would actually ever work right, but I had some time to drive that truck for a few days, and it just felt like it came that way. It was amazing.
It's really cool, and I think, again, there's no knock against the EcoBoost. That's a great motor. Obviously, we built hundreds of Velociraptor 600 trucks, and so that's still something that keeps our shop very, very busy. But for the person that wants that classic American V8 power in the Raptor, we're the only company that offers that. So we're pretty proud of that.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah. So we'll be coming out with more videos and showing the capabilities, and maybe trying to get out to the desert, jump in some sand dunes, and do some craziness with that thing. Maybe even going out in the mud, just trying not to get stuck.
Oof. Yeah. I don't know about that. But
yeah. Exactly.
Mud video.
Yeah. All right, so I was just up at the Detroit Auto Show a couple weeks ago, and went up primarily to go see the new GT 500 Mustang, which I was excited about. I think everybody's known for a while it's coming. What's it going to be like? What are they going to do to compete with the Red Eye? And I mean, you guys haven't seen it close. You've seen all the pictures, but I have to say I was really very pleasantly impressed with the carbon fiber wheels and the carbon wing and dual clutch transmission. I kind of felt like the Ford Performance guys had taken the new GT 500 and they've taken a muscle car and they've kind of gone more towards the exotic market. Again, it's still a muscle car, it's still heavy, but dual clutch transmission, the carbon wheels. I mean, you could park that thing next to a Ferrari and a GT3 Porsche at a car show, at Cars and Coffee, and I think people would be like, man, the GT 500 is pretty badass.
Yeah, I've only seen pictures of it, and I love what I've seen so far. I can't wait to see one in person. They definitely didn't disappoint on the stuff I've heard.
Can't wait to modify it.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, Alex and Jerry, it was fun talking about Grand Tour and Top Gear and some of our upcoming vehicles we got coming down the pipeline. We'll try to keep this podcast thing going, and there's always something interesting that in the pipeline. We got this year we got Texas Mall coming up. Can run the Jeep.
Well, we can run the Jeep. I say we always bring something different, but we still have it.
Okay.
May as well bring it.
All right. What did we run last time? One high 180s?
Low 180s. I think we were pulling real good, but then ran into some basically limp home thing that we didn't ever have a chance to figure out because we hadn't been 180 in the Jeep before. Yeah. So I think we ended up going 183. 167 and a half though.
Yeah, that's fine.
A Jeep, that was a good time.
First 200 Jeep.
Right.
Yeah. We'll do that.
All right, guys, thanks for tuning in to the podcast, and give us your questions, comments. Tell us what your questions are, and we'll try to answer them. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, everybody.